Tomorrow night, yeah. Okay, Thursday night we started learning about Muktzeh. Discussed that it's a rabbinic, according to most opinions, it's rabbinic, and basically means you're not allowed to move certain things that are basically either not considered utensils or things that are forbidden to use on Shabbos, and under certain circumstances you could use it. So we learned there's something called Keli Shemalachto Le'isr, that something whose primary use is for something forbidden. For instance, a pen is primarily used for writing. Therefore, a pen is called Keli Shemalachto Le'isr. Its primary use is something forbidden. Now, that is partial muktzeh. What does it mean, partial muktzeh? You can't move it. If it's outside, you're afraid it's going to get stolen, you can't bring it in. But if you want to use it for something permissible, or you need the place where it's on, so then you would be allowed to move it. Another example of this we learned the other day is a hammer. A hammer is primarily made for construction. Construction is forbidden on Shabbos. Therefore, a hammer is called Keli Shemalachto Le'isr. So if, let's say, the hammer was left on the table and I need the place on the table, I can pick up the hammer, put it away where it belongs. Or if I need the hammer to crack open a walnut or a coconut or to use something or prop up a book, whatever. So then the hammer is not muktzeh. So today we're going to go back. That was just to explain the concept. Today we're going to discuss what's called Keli Shemalachto Leheter. Things that their primary use is for something permissible, and therefore they're really not muktzeh. But halacha says, and it's questionable what it means, you shouldn't move it for absolutely no reason. The only thing you can move for absolutely no reason is cutlery, plates, svarim, but as we'll soon learn, stam, just to you, and poskim ask, what does that mean? If you're moving it, obviously you want to play with it, you want to do something with it. Anyway, so for instance, watches, wristwatches, are you're allowed to tell time on Shabbos. So therefore, watches are not muktzeh. The only type of watch that would be muktzeh, by the way, is for a different reason. Sometimes, it used to be more popular than it is today. Sometimes you used to have, not long ago, they used to have watches which with a black face. You don't see anything. In order to see the time, you press a button and then it lights up. So obviously that watch you can't wear on Shabbos. You can't even move it because it's muktzeh, because the only way you use it is with a non-permissible way of doing things in Shabbos. So that watch would be muktzeh. But a regular watch, it's not muktzeh on Shabbos. It's made to tell time. But I'll give you an example. A watch that's not working, the battery died, or years ago when you used to wind up the watches, it became unwound, and now the watch is not working. So that watch is muktzeh because it's not useful for anything. It's not telling time. It's not a keli anymore. But what's interesting, let's say you have an expensive, very expensive gold watch. So it's actually, let's say, a jewelry piece, and it stopped working. So I don't know about today, but years ago, women would wear that watch anyway, just as jewelry, because they didn't need it for the time. They just wore it because it was very nice. So, Marshall, women would be allowed to wear that watch in the street on Shabbos because it's a jewelry piece. But a man who was not going to wear a watch if it's not working, even if it's a gold watch, you're not going to wear it for jewelry piece. So then it would be more muktzeh than a regular watch.
There's a difference between watch that has battery and watch that you have to move in your hand.
There's no difference, and I'll tell you why. All the watches, again, you're going back in history, right? Self-winding watches. Okay, they didn't have a battery, you didn't have to wind them. But when you move your hand, it wound it up. So, L'Marshal, those watches, as long as before Shabbos, it had enough wind in it from your movements to work for 24 hours, those watches are not muktzeh at all on Shabbos. You're allowed to wear. You could. I'm not saying in the street. I'm not talking about wearing watches in the street. It's a whole different story. I'm talking about just in the house. Let's say moving a watch or a clock or whatever it is. So then that wouldn't be an issue because it's still a functioning watch. What? There's nothing to do with muktzeh. The shaila is it called building in Shabbos. So then it would be a shaila because it's not made to come on and off the wall. So you can't really put it back onto the wall on Shabbos. Now, that's something? Oh. So now next thing is like this. Toys and games. This is a very important thing. Bottom line of the halacha is like this. A game that you're allowed to play on Shabbos is not muktzeh. A game you're not allowed to play on Shabbos, so then it is muktzeh. It's a very simple, you can go into, in these books, they go through like a lot of different, to give you an example. Even though any game, let me preface it with this, any game that you keep score by writing, you're not allowed to play on Shabbos. Why? Because when you play the game, you write. So normally you're going to forget it Shabbos and you're going to write. So halachically you can't because Rabbi Chacham said, even though you're going to play the game without keeping score, but bottom line is it's a game that you normally keep score. So I'll give you an example. An old halacha, talking hundreds of years ago, they all write you're not allowed to play chess on Shabbos. Why? Because in those times, people would write down the moves. Professional players, when you play chess, they would write down the moves. So again, it's a game that you write with. So therefore, you wouldn't be allowed to play chess. Much later, poskim, the last many years, so everybody writes halach. I'm not saying it's Shabbosdik, not Shabbosdik, but halachically, today when you play a chess game, nobody writes down the moves. You can't play computer chess or electronic chess. That obviously you can't play on Shabbos because it's causing lights and all that stuff. But today you're allowed to play chess because today people don't write down moves. So we're not afraid you're going to write down the moves. But checkers and all those types of games. But let's say you have a game like Scrabble. Now normally when you play Scrabble, you keep score because that's how many points you get by making a word. I mean, that's the way the game is played. So you wouldn't be allowed to play Scrabble on Shabbos. There's another issue with that also. There's two types of Scrabbles. The old ones and the new ones. Again, I'm not talking the electronic Scrabble. The old Scrabble boards were just a plain board and you had the pieces on it. Okay? They didn't stick into a groove. It was just, plain pieces on a Scrabble board. That's not an issue on Shabbat. Well, besides the writing. You can't play it anyway, I'm saying, but there could be a second problem involved. That wouldn't be a problem. But if you have the deluxe Scrabble that has grooves, that your pieces fit in tightly, that you can swirl around the board and the pieces are not going to go anywhere. So those games you couldn't play on Shabbos anyway, because that's writing, because you're putting letters in a tight place, and that could be a shaila of writing. So, but again, even they're not deluxe Scrabble, you can't play on Shabbos because now to play on Shabbos, you can't write on Shabbos. For instance, bicycles, tricycles, okay. I know the Svardim say that the Vaad was makel, then he wasn't makel, he changed his mind. I don't know exactly what's going on there. But in Ashkenazic halacha, you're not allowed to ride a bicycle on Shabbos. Even if there's no problem of carrying, let's say there's a native and you go by the native, you're not allowed to ride a bike on Shabbos. There's a lot of things, as we'll soon discuss, that the Chacham said you're not allowed to do because you might come to build something else. For instance, halacha said, the Gemara says this, you're not allowed to ride a horse on Shabbos. Why are you not allowed to ride a horse on Shabbos? We're afraid you're going to rip off a branch from the tree to use as a whip. And that would be the malach of Kaitzid, harvesting something from something growing. The Gemara says you're not allowed to swim on Shabbos because in a river you might build a raft. So now the Chacham said you're not allowed to do certain things because you might come to do something else. 1 second. So therefore, a bicycle, it says in all Ashkenazic poskim, you're not allowed to ride on Shabbos because the chain might fall off and you'll fix it. or the air in the tire will deflate and you'll fill it up, and then you're even makah b'patish. What?
What about animals and Muktzeh, horses Muktzeh, and also having your animals rest on things? When you have show,
You know, if a horse is muktzeh on Shabbos, that means you cannot pick up the horse. So don't.
why are you're not moving the horse or animal?
The horse is moving.
Okay, but you use your feet
You're not.
to deal with the run, no?
No. That wouldn't be a shiloh muktzeh. It's a shiloh of another thing. You're not allowed to do it anyway. It doesn't matter. But it's not muktzeh. What?
So why can't we swim in a swimming pool?
Okay, why can't you swim in a swimming pool where people don't build rafts in a swimming pool? Not yet, at least. That is a different reason. Because according to halacha, you're not allowed to wash your whole body in Shabbos in water. Only if it's tzedek mitzvah. Like for instance, a woman has to go to mikveh, or in the Hasidic world, by the way, if men go to mikveh Shabbos morning, there's not an issue. But a lot of the Litvish people, they will not go to mikveh on Shabbos. They'll go before Shabbos, but not on Shabbos. Why? Because then you have an issue. Now, rechitza is cold gufay, washing your whole body in cold water, even in cold water, is forbidden on Shabbos, because you will come, number one, to schita, you'll squeeze the water out of your hair, or, when you'll be carrying water, with a lot of different reasons. So the only reason it's allowed, if somebody wants to go to a mikveh, so then it's allowed. And even then, you shouldn't, even the Chassidish poskim, many people hold you're not allowed to go to a hot mikveh on Shabbos. Only a cool mikveh on Shabbos. You can't go actually to a hot mikveh on Shabbos. That's for a different reason, because you might heat up the water and a different thing. So swimming in a pool is not only swimming is not only an issue with a raft, it's washing your entire body, which is forbidden on Shabbos. You could put your feet in a swimming pool to cool off, but you can't dunk the entire body. Because you could sit at the ledge of the swimming pool and put your feet in the water. That you could do. When you wash your hands, you also create... when you talk, when people talk, and I'm not saying nothing... Some people talk, they create hot air. That'd be a shot, a bishul. Cooking on Shabbos. No, making a wave you go like this, you're creating waves in the air. I mean, that's not an issue. That's not called beina, creating anything. But l'mashal, a tricycle, which doesn't have a chain, and the tires don't inflate, it's just tires. So l'mashal, in a place where little kids are allowed to do it. For an adult, it's a question if it's not in the spirit of Shabbos, not Shabbosdik. There's a lot of issues. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with people in various communities like to go with scooters to shul on Shabbos in a place where there's a native. And many poskim hold that your befeder is not allowed to, because it's what's called uvdin d'chol. It's not Shabbosdik. You're not allowed to do something. We learned that when we're learning why the Chacham made certain decrees. It's pashut not in the spirit of Shabbos, to writing somebody once called me with a shayla, interesting. A guy became from, and he lives like 4 miles away from the shul. I gave you an example to you, I don't know exactly which, I remember which city, but it's in Newport Beach, yeah? So you have the, what's it called? That goes over the... No, the boat, the ferry. The ferry that goes... So the guy wanted to know if he prepays the ferry, and he goes on the ferry on Shabbos, he'll save 2 miles, which is a lot, 4 miles each way, and then 2 miles. So I looked up, it's interesting, there's mamash a clear tshuva from Rabbi Yosef Feinstein about the guy asks the shayla if he can go on the ferry, if he prepays to save walking to shul, and he says, no, you're not allowed to. It's not Shabbosdik. It's not, you can't do it. Even though you're not doing anything, you're prepaying, but he writes you can't do it.
So you told him no?
Why can't I tell him yes if it says in halacha no?
I know.
I don't work like that yet. And it depends also how much they pay. You know what the story is. What?
They said that they're not allowed to go with the bicycle, that's in case if the chain is gonna come off,
Right.
they're gonna put it on. But they don't have a problem using a hammer to.
No, that's...
Maybe there's a nail also, it's gonna do it.
No, that not, because you're using it now for this specific thing. You're riding the bike and the chain can fall off or the tire can deflate. That's an issue. But, riding all these things are going, it's forbidden.
You can swim across.
You're not allowed to swim in Shabbos either.
Not for the desert.
Doesn't matter, even Tzarech Mitzvah, you're not allowed to swim.
Surf across.
Huh?
His body never touches the water. He's on a surfboard. Could he surf across?
You're carrying the surfboard in the Carmelis. Okay, but again, tricycles would be allowed for Shabbos. Okay, next. Well, but by the way, one important thing. Let's say a guy is not so firm yet. He says, listen, either I'm going to drive to shul or I'm going to come by bike. What's obviously the lesser of the evils? There's no question at all. A bike is literally a million times less problem than driving a car on Shabbos. Driving a car on Shabbos, if you have an 8-cylinder car, it's 8,000 sparks per minute, and if it's 6,000 cylinder, it's 6-cylinder, 6,000 sparks per minute, and then you have the brake lights go on and off, and this and that. It's a big problem. So if a guy says a bike or this, you can't say yes, you're allowed to use a bike. You could say to them, the bike is the lesser of the evils, by far. Really by far. Okay. What?
$1 million chatzot offers to buy a car.
I don't hear you.